Hi everybody, my name is John McNaughton and I am a faculty member in the higher education program here at Texas Tech and also a member of the Teaching Academy. I wanted to make this short video because we were asked to put together a few of the things that we use when we teach virtually. And I know that this is a technique that I've used both in the classroom and also virtually. And like many of you, I'm trying to find ways to keep my students engaged while we meet online and make sure that they're participating and that they're getting as much out of the course as possible. And so that skill or that kind of technique that I want to talk about is called the power lead. And while there are a few reasons that I choose to use the power lead, I want to talk about three of them specifically. The first one is, again, that maybe our students are not as engaged in our virtual session as we want them to be. And this is a way to sort of prime the pump, to start the class by just immediately throwing students into the conversation. Sometimes I think what happens is as we start the class, as we go through the agenda, as we start sharing and teaching some content, a lot of times we lose students in that. And so this kind of forces them to engage instantly in the course and in the conversation for our virtual sessions, as well as in our face-to-face sessions. The second thing is, we might want to hear from our students around their experiences and thoughts on the material before we actually teach any new content. So for me, this gives me an opportunity to have some of their personal experiences and relate it to some of my content. Of course, I'm teaching in some of the social sciences. And for some of you, maybe it's for them to share some of the work that they've done, experimenting and trying some of the content. But whatever it is, it gives you a sense of what they've done and something to tie back your conversation with. And then the third thing is, in addition to content, I also want students to build connections. Right, and so this allows me to do some breakout groups, to have some conversations where the stakes are a little bit lower. We're talking about something to get the conversation started, not necessarily kind of in the middle of class. And so I find this to be a great way to also build connections with students. And like I said, there's a number of other objectives that I have for doing the power lead as an approach, but I wanted to share those three, and hopefully you can think of some of you on your own. Now what I want to do is just briefly share a few examples of what I do when I do this power lead approach in my courses. Now keep in mind, I'm teaching very applied and higher ed administration courses, and so it's a lot of experience these students have, but of course you can adapt this to your own courses. Now this first one is really just a question that I ask, and so this actually was in teaching a Radar Ready class, and I asked the students, what's something that you've learned about yourself in the last 2 weeks? Now I've also participated in the Tempo program, which is a teaching mentorship program through the TLPDC, and in that program I got to go witness this same kind of approach in a few different classes, a theater arts and dance class and a physics class, and they use this as a way to kind of get some of those things out of your mind and then jump into the content. But again, this created a great conversation. People felt more connected and ready to engage. This second approach to Power Lead actually involves a little multimedia, and so I showed a video by Dr. Robert Quinn around this idea of life's purpose. And this, of course, was talking about institutional missions and purpose, and so why higher education exists. And so I posed a couple of questions for them, and then I showed this video. And it gave them an opportunity, again, to reflect on something as we were watching it in the moment. And then afterwards, we had a conversation about their reactions to the video, their thoughts on the comments and on the questions. A third approach I've taken is to actually design a quick case study where I divide the class into groups. I send them out into breakout groups in Zoom, and I have them each take a position, right? So they have the case study, they're each given a specific position, and then I give them specific questions to reflect on in that position. So as the Vice President for Finance, what do I think the institution should do? What context would I want? What data would I want? And so again, it gives them the opportunity to jump right in, to think about the readings we've had that week, and to think about the content in relationship to an actual decision. And I found that students really enjoy this. And again, with those small groups, it helps to build a little camaraderie in the class as well. And then afterwards, they come back, one person reports out, and they've had a chance to really dig in right up front. The last one I want to share is actually questions specific to the readings that we had this week. And so this week we were talking about conflict and power dynamics. And so I asked a couple of questions. What are the most common conflicts and what are the root causes? And I told them to write those down. And then what I did is I used a Google Jamboard and I shared that on the screen. And sometimes I've allowed them to write on those Jamboards. And so this is something you can write on with an iPad. You can also type on it, using your computer. So you share the link to the Google Jamboard. And other times I'll just write on it. But it's nice because for those of you who really love the whiteboard, this gives you a chance to still use that whiteboard type mentality, keep track of some of their ideas. Hopefully your handwriting is much better than mine. But then I can also save that as a PDF and send it back out to the class, which is something that we can't do, right, when we have a whiteboard. Now, I know I'm pushing our limit on the length of videos that we should have in our courses, but I just wanted to say again that the Power Lead for me has been a great tool to get students to engage up front, to also help them to think about the content with a more critical lens, to build connections, and also to help them to kind of prime that pump, right? I feel like once they buy in and they have that engagement up front, they're more likely to have it at the end. So I hope this helps you, and of course apply this to your course, and good luck as you try the Power Lead.